News. I'm Charles Anyegolu. Coming up in the next 30 minutes, all the news, comment and analysis that provide unrivaled insight into Nigeria 2019, including as ever more communal clashes erupt across Nigeria as a result of numerous boundary disputes. A bill has been proposed at the National Assembly to strengthen the powers of the National Boundary Commission, which up till now had a very tricky path to tread in reacting to these boundary disputes. So, can this bill end the countless disputes and years of war and legal wrangling over these boundaries? Well, the man who is sponsoring the bill at the National Assembly is Senator Gersh, who represents Cross River State South Senatorial District and is also the Vice Chairman of the Senate Committee on Petroleum Resources. And Senator Bassi joins me now in the studio. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you, Charles.
Just remind us of the recent communal clashes that have occurred as a result of these boundary disputes and how bloody they've been, starting of course with your own state, Cross River State.
Well, in our state, we've had boundary issues in about 3 or 4 local governments, most recently, but before that we'd had in other local governments. We've had in my senatorial district the Odukbani boundary dispute with Akwa Ibom State. In the Central Senatorial District, there's been the communal clashes in Abi local government with Ebonyi State. And they've been recently and more topically in the news, there's been the clash in the Northern Senatorial District between the people of Ukele in Yala and the people of Izi in Ebonyi State. So these are boundary disputes that have caused a great deal of destruction of lives and property. And a lot of it is down to the lack of clarity in the boundaries.
And of course, beyond that, there are also those same communal clashes across in other parts of the country.
Oh yes, you have it in a lot of states. I think at last count it was in about 19 states across the country. You have these boundary disputes, and if you listen to the debate, most of my colleagues all jumped in to contribute to that debate because it affects them, and they understand what's really going on in these boundaries. And look, when these things happen, it's all a question of title. Where does my title end and where does your title begin? And that is where we're having a lot of this loss of life, burning of houses, people being displaced, even IDPs as a result of this. So I think it's something that the Boundary Commission, who are empowered by our laws to get into these things, we need to even strengthen them more so that they can do the job and tell everybody where the boundaries are.
So is that what this bill is about then? I mean, strengthening the Boundary Commission? Because, I mean, the assumption was that the laws are already there and that what's needed is enforcement.
Yes, it's an amendment. What we proposed last week was an amendment to the existing laws, and the existing laws are there, but we want the Boundary Commission to be more proactive. You don't wait till after the fact. Try and do these things before they happen.
Right.
So that's really the thrust of that of the amendment that we're proposing, and let it be done periodically in order to ensure that these things are taken care of before these situations erupt.
Right. Isn't this just another example of a security crisis that Nigeria is facing? Because, I mean, you're doing your job, which is as a senator to make sure that the laws are right to empower the commission, but it still has to be enforced. It's got to be the police who do it. I mean, is there anything that can be done in that direction?
Well, what we are saying is if the Boundary Commission is empowered to do its job in a more proactive way, then the issue of the police doesn't even arise, because everybody will know where their boundaries are, and the probability of boundary disputes reduces.
Right.
So that's what we're saying. We're saying that in solving a lot of security problems in Nigeria, we need to be proactive. We can't wait till they erupt before we start solving them.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's try and anticipate some of these issues, bring clarity to the situation before these things happen, and that's really what it's all about. And I think that's what we need to do in a lot of the security issues that we have in our country. We need to be thinking ahead of the curve.
And of course, all this happening as elections approach.
Yes.
I mean, how much of an election issue are these boundary disputes? Because as you pointed out, security, of course, a big concern as Nigeria heads towards elections, and you've got all these numerous flashpoints across the country. I mean, that must make a lot of people like yourself, particularly with what's happening what's happened in your state, very nervous.
Well, you know, we don't want to politicize security, and we will never politicize security. But what we want to do is point
out... Well, the government says it's being politicized, that the president has said innumerable times that politicians are the people fueling this crisis.
Well, we don't want to politicize the boundary disputes or any other security issue. That's not the that's not the position of my party. We just want to point out to the party in government that these things are there.
Of course, your party is the PDP, the opposition, the main opposition party.
And what we want to do is to assist the government to bring resolution to all these issues. And that's what we're doing. We will not politicize security.
But the fact, of course, is that there is a political element in all of this, whether you want to politicize it or not, because politicians try to find some way of gaining political capital out of every situation, and security is no exception.
Well, look, if the security situation can be resolved around the country tomorrow, I'd be the happiest man. So that it doesn't dovetail into the elections. For us in the PDP, I think it's more about resolving these issues as opposed to making it a political issue.
Right.
But of course, if it hasn't been resolved by the time you get to the elections, then of course we must point that out.
And of course
we would be derelict in our duty not to point it out.
But of course this bill that you're sponsoring, I mean, it's just gone through the first reading or something.
Second reading. That what you saw was the lead debate on the second reading.
Right.
So it is now past second reading, and then it's going to go to the public hearings and so on.
Right. So how much longer before this amendment is adopted, if you like?
Well, it depends again on because it's been consigned to a committee,
right,
and it depends on how fast the committee works.
So it could take a while.
It could take a while. Well, I wouldn't say it could take a while, but I think it's an urgent thing, and I'm sure the committee will work very quickly on it.
Well, let's switch gears and talk briefly about yourself. You are, of course, from Cross River State, part of the Three Musketeers, as they say. They call you that. That's of course Donald Duke, Leali Moke, and yourself, Gershom Bassi, who joined politics almost at the same time, together as young men, and pledged to turn your state and this country around for the better. Is that tripartite alliance still going strong between you three, or has it, as it were, fallen apart, as things tend to do in this country?
No, we're still friends, and we still talk about our state, we talk about our country. In fact, we just last week, or week before last, we were having a discourse about things. No, we're still friends, and yes, we still continue to talk politics amongst ourselves.
Of course, Donald and Leo ended up serving 2 terms as governors of Cross River State, and you ended up as a senator. Was that always the plan, or did a spanner sort of get into the works and moved you away from the governorship into the Senate?
Well, I think our politics has always been about fairness, and fairness to all, every part of the state. What had happened was that Donald is from the Southern Senatorial District, which is the district I represent, of Cross River State. Leo is from the Central Senatorial District. And having done 2 terms each in those senatorial districts, we felt it was the turn of the North to produce a governor in federal character, fairness, and all that. So that is why our current governor is from the Northern Senatorial District, and things are working smoothly.
Are they?
Yes.
Because, I mean, I was going to ask you, are you happy with the way Cross River State is developing and evolving? Because, I mean, for a moment there, you know, it was the leading state in Nigeria, leading in the way of modernizing. It was the cleanest and greenest state. I mean, I went there all the time. It led the way in diversification away from oil, the only state in the Niger Delta, in fact, that wasn't producing oil, developing its tourism industry to about the highest standard in Nigeria and West Africa. Then suddenly, I mean, it seems to have fallen back into the rotting vegetation, no longer so clean and green, lots of people dissatisfied, growing communal clashes. What's gone wrong?
No, I think there may be a little bit of an exaggeration. Yes, there were some teething problems at the beginning of the current governor's tenure, but he has quickly gotten on top of a lot of those situations. And you see that there's a gradual turnaround in terms of what he's doing. We have a governor who is a big thinker. He's a big, bold thinker, and he tries to come up with big concepts and has a way in which he wants to do things. And I think that every governor or every government ought to be given an opportunity to express themselves, and that's what our governor is doing. Let's give him an opportunity to express himself and follow him, support him, and hope that at the end of the day we will get to where his dreams want to take us.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, Senator, we're going to take a short break. Please stay with us. You're watching Nigeria, the road to 2019. Plenty more still ahead, including more of our chat with Senator Gersh representing Cross River State South Senatorial District. We turn the focus on the competition for votes between his party, the opposition PDP, and the ruling APC as the general elections move ever closer. Stay with us.